Anyway, we're here for another episode of Throwdown Thursdays, your number one stop for AFL SuperCoach content on Thursday mornings, I guess, the morning before the carnage. So let's get involved, shall we? So we've written a bit of a run sheet, but obviously you guys will help us out in the comments for more stuff. But I guess before everyone jumps on and realizes we're live, let's talk about Harry Perryman, a guy that we were talking about just before the podcast on whether we should boot or keep. And how are your overall vibes with Harry Perryman, Damo?
My thing with Harry Perryman is we all knew that he was going to play a defensive midfield role.
Yep.
We all knew that he was going to be in a midfield with Jordan De Goey and Nick Dacos. Jordan De Goey's obviously not played, but he's coming back this week and everyone's panicking. But they would have recruited Harry Perryman with the best intentions that everyone was fit. So they would have assumed that Perryman would be in that midfield with De Goey, Dacos, whoever else is running through there. And I just think in a game that's a blowout, he wasn't required to do as much as he might have had to do in a closer game. Because the role as a defensive midfielder is to set up the guys like a Dacos, like a De Goey, to go and do their thing. Because he didn't really have to do that because Port Adelaide were so poor, it meant that we were stuck with a 62 that now has people panicking. If he had scored the 62 against the Giants in round 0 and then followed that up with a 93 in round 1, would the conversation be going the other way where people moved him on after round 0 and are now trying to find a way to bring him in? We've only seen 2 games, and I know the prices are changing. He's still got a very achievable 77. And you look at the Dogs midfield, there is no one that he needs to put a hard tag on this week.
No.
And Collingwood aren't the sort of team to do tags traditionally. So I was very surprised when they went to Jason Horne-Francis.
Yes, I was as well. I think the thing with Perryman is, I think in that Giants game, it's sort of one of those things where in the Richmond game, he looked unbelievable in the practice game. Then he played the Giants where he would, that's a solid game out of Perryman. That's sort of what we expected. And then on last week's game, we're a bit, that wasn't good. I don't have any complaints for anyone needing his money to go to Bailey Smith. But if you have the option to hold, I would recommend holding. If you don't need to rush in and get some mid-pricer, I like the idea of holding, giving it one more week. We knew he was going to be a defensive midfielder. The CBAs did go down. Now, that was partially due to, out of all people, Steele Sidebottom taking centre bounces along with that. But I think people have the right to be concerned about the flexibility of Perryman that we've seen in the past from the Giants, where it's not the end-all, be-all for Perryman to be in that midfield. He can play on the wing. He can play half-back. So that would be the concern for some holders. But I would be willing to give it one more week if you don't have if you have the option to hold. I wouldn't be trading for the sake of trading. It's a 77 break even, which is extremely achievable. And I would hold Perryman if you have the option to. If there's better opportunities that you didn't start with, you go that route. But for me, I think Perryman is a hold for me.
The one red flag that does come up for me is in the Giants game, they mentioned that they put him at halfback for balance late in that game. If that's going to be where they put him for balance, then that is the only question mark that I have around his role in the midfield. But he wouldn't have gone from the Giants as a Swiss Army knife to Collingwood as a Swiss Army knife. He would have been sold a position that he was going to play in. And I reckon midfield is where he was sold, and that's where he will play the majority of his game. So I am definitely on the side of holding him. And if you've come out of round one and Harry Perryman is your biggest issue, your team's in a pretty good spot.
Would that news with Perryman being halfback be partially due to Houston not playing?
Potentially. I mean, it's difficult to say. Collingwood usually have a fairly typical setup, so I'm surprised that they did change something like that mid-game. So there's a chance that it could have been because Houston wasn't there, but yeah, I'm not entirely sure.
That's all right. We'll get to some questions on Harry Perryman, as he's been the main talking point so far for Throwdown Thursdays. Make sure you follow us on the socials, Twitter and TikTok. I know Damo's slowly tipping his toes into the TikTok world, so make sure you chuck a follow for him. And shout out to anyone that follows me on TikTok. Getting 1,000 followers is pretty sick. Harley Sports Talk. I keep saying Sports Talk. Harley, it's AFL Talk. G'day, mate. Hope you're going well. Perryman, get out of my team. Fair enough. I feel like there's two sides to this, where it's just like, nah, can't do it. There's parts of probably more like us where we're just, probably give it one more week just to be safe. I don't really like Cheese. How you going, mate? He's an absolute legend of the channel, so I appreciate it, mate. James P, good timing. Perryman is all I thought about for days. Don't worry, mate. We'll keep chatting. Perryman. Actually, that's probably our Perryman segment done. But hopefully, what we said did help you. I'd love to keep Perryman for a week, but the role means any given week he's going to tag and give me a 60. Not necessarily, Ben. Do you reckon, Damo?
The fact they've used him once means there's a chance they'll use him again, but I don't think tagging is going to be his modus operandi. I think that the tag was. I don't know if the tag's going to be an every week thing.
I agree. But I guess with his flexibility, that's what we sort of knew into the pick. He's Gonski, fair enough. Ed Richards, maybe. He's quite damaging with the ball. Do you reckon? I don't know if Perryman could actually keep up with Ed Richards.
Yeah, that's the other thing that sort of came to mind. When I said I don't think there's anyone that he can tag in the Bulldogs midfield, I didn't mean that Ed Richards wasn't good enough. I meant that he's not the sort of player that Perryman could probably go with. So there's no one in that Jason Horne-Francis mold that Perryman could successfully tag.
The closest one for me out of that Dogs midfield would be Liberatore as the one that you go to. That would be probably, if Perryman was to tag on Friday night, I think that's where he goes. I don't have Smith either, but probably still give it one more week. Fair enough. We got to get all the data. We've got to remember before Boost sort of affected our thinking a bit, that trading in round one used to be you don't do and you give it 2 weeks. But now it's an ever-evolving, changing game of SuperCoach where we got to stay on our toes. We got to keep up to date with everyone. So that's all right. Rookie coach, I'll tell you what, he is an absolute rising star of the game. Just the quality of his content is through the roof. Morning, boys. How are you feeling about trades this week? We were sort of mildly discussing this off air. Damo seems pretty content with his moves. I'm still debating whether to use 2 or 3. So that's up in the air for me. And Cheese as well. I know you sent me a message on Twitter. I'll get back to you after this recording. My thing with Perryman is yeah, exactly. If you got to get Bailey Smith, you got to get Bailey Smith. So Or you hold off for 1 week. That's the thing. But it would make don't do that. Nah, just hold for a week. I reckon. Cheese. To get off the Perryman topic, do we think Oliver could be a worry if he's average again? Decent antipod or no? I don't think he's a decent antipod just because I don't know what the winning formula is to antipod him.
So Clayton Oliver still had 25 disposals at 72%, and he finished on 93. He gave away 4 free kicks. That his score could have quite easily been 110 without those 4 free kicks.
Agree. And yeah, I just personally, for me, I don't see. Like, I could see a good result for people anti-potting a Harry Sheasel or Tristan Cherry, that type, where it's high money and you're preying on their downfall. Where compared to Oliver, what's the winning formula? An injury? That'd be the only one for me. Where
Also, keep in mind the weather in that game was awful. No player really had a good game. There was only 4 players in the Demon side that ended up on a score above 100, and they were Jake Lever, who looked like he was intercepting everything, Max Gawn, Christian Salem, who was also playing in that backline sort of role, who only recorded 3 handballs out of his 30 disposals. So kicking is the key to a good SuperCoach score. And then the other one was Tom McDonald, finish on 103. No one would have ever guessed that Tom McDonald would finish on a ton in round 1. So I don't think we need to panic about anything. Round 1 might have been the weirdest SuperCoach week that I've been that I've been involved in, that I've experienced in quite a while.
Well, yeah, we were sort of. I don't have it on the run sheet, but you got to think of it this way: like, you think of all the 600k players, there were 15 600k players. Only one of them you'd consider that you'd be happy with, which is Josh Dunkley, who's one of the pods at 600k. So it is a bit of a rough one if you did lean more towards the Guns and Rookies perspective, the Guns and Rookies path to start the season, because that's just how I see it. I think we'll move on to our next topic, Damo. I think we'll talk about Flynn R2 / Flex debate, because for me on social media, Twitter specifically, what it feels like is it's almost a rivalry to some extent. I don't know how you feel about it. The Flynn R2s versus the Flynn Flexes, where I see it as people at Flex want Flynn dropped, as opposed, because it is a massive benefit for their team if Flynn does get dropped, and I don't think he will get dropped. But I don't know if you see it the same way as me. Do you feel like there's a little bit of a rivalry between, oh, that's too risky at R2, or, oh, you've got to put him at Flex? How do you feel?
Matt Flynn finished on 87
With 13
from
hitouts.
13 disposals and 13 hitouts. That's a pretty, considering his stat line, 87 is a great score for a ruckman. He's probably lacking in the ruck in the number 1 ruck department, and that's probably going to be one of the main areas where West Coast has to address at the end of this season. But to get an 87 from a guy that's probably going to be the number 1 ruck for the majority of the season at this point, I don't believe that Bailey Williams is in the calculations
or changing anything.
I don't believe that. I don't believe that Bailey Williams is going to come in and change Matt Flynn's role. So to get to 87 from 13 disposals and just 13 hitouts, that is pretty good for a ruckman that you've paid, what, 260, 270k for. He could be one of the best money makers because he only needs a few weeks in that West Coast side to get to, what, 300, 400k, and then by then you might not need him by then anyway.
Yeah, I was discussing about this with Swizz last night. If you haven't checked it out, make sure you do. Where we talk about round one trading priorities. But hang on, I forgot what we were saying. Flynn. Yeah, yeah. So we're talking about these rucks. Yeah, we were talking about Harry Boyd, and all it takes is just to be the number one ruck. It doesn't matter what skill level you are as a ruckman, and you just like the solo ruck itself can get you to 400k minimum. It can get you averaging 85 realistically. And if Flynn's getting 87 against one of the toughest ruck matchups in the comp, regardless of how dodgy he looked, it's a great result. And I'm probably going to say something that might be controversial. I think so far, as of round one, I believe Flynn at R2 is winning over Flex.
Why does where you have Flynn dictate whether it is a win or not?
Well, I think of it this way.
Because if you have him at flex, you have him. It doesn't matter where he is on the field.
No, I'm not denying that. It's great that anyone has him. But I'm thinking more the other way of Tristan Cherry went 121 against one of the easiest ruck matchups, priced at 645K, where now he's got a tough run after that. That was the one easy matchup for him. You look at Max Gawn against Kieran Briggs, where everyone was expecting potentially a 160. Now, the conditions didn't help him, but he landed on a 129. Now, Cherry and Gawn play each other this week, and I believe Gawn gets a tough matchup run from here. So, Gawn's got like Draper and Gather Round. We know Essendon are one of the tougher ruck matchups. So, I don't know. It's
so
not
are you saying that Tristan Cherry scoring a 122 was a fail?
Not saying it was a fail, but some people picked him
because he's priced at 119, and only 18 players on average every year average 110 or more. So I'm not quite understand what you're saying about Flynn versus Cherry in that second ruck position or whatever you're saying, because you got to just, because a lot of the time when people pay up for these players, they're paying for these scores that the player is priced at. You're not going to get a player that comes out and scores 140 to 160 every single week. It just doesn't happen. So I think to get 122 from Cherry, he's priced at 119. That's a win. If you're able to get the score that the player is priced at every single week, then that is 100% a win.
Yeah, and Cherry 100% could be. I mean, look, at the end of the day, we know Cherry's going to average 120 by the end of the year, if not more. But it's more about the tough run that he's got after this matchup. And this could very much 100% mean that Cherry could still average 115, and that's fine. And that turns the tune of Cherry and De Koning duo being the successful one. I'm just in my opinion at the minute, I feel like the TDK and Flynn after round one is the leading duo, just due to Cherry having a tough run after this one game. And Cherry was fine, like scoring 122 is fine, but the tough run comes, and then you look at Max Gawn 129, very good. Like he's priced at I think 124. So still went 5 points above what he's priced at. But now he also gets a tough run. So look, at the end of the day, they're still 100%, 1,000% going to out-average Flynn. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that makes any sense.
What I'd like to know is, if people have Flynn at R2, who do they then have at their flex that is outperforming whoever you could have had at R2 instead?
Yeah, well, look, for me personally, I've got O'Driscoll there, but it's just one of those high price mids, rookie mids that we all can't find a way to fit into our side at the minute. So I've just got him in flex at the minute, but I know others will have. I mean, if people have Harry Boyd at flex, that's might be looking good if he can hold that number one ruck role.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's talking about the makeup of teams and all that, and we've already had round one. I think the debate for how your team was to be made up, or the optimal way to make up your team, I don't think that debate should. I don't think I don't think now is the best time for that debate, because
Yeah,
teams are all locked in. People should be happy with how you did all that research all over summer to get your team to where it is now, and now people are suddenly making 3 trades and then planning another 3 trades to completely change their structure, and then you're 6
yeah,
trades down the drain, and you're starting behind the 8 ball with only 34 in the 34 trades in the bank. So it's I feel like the Supercoach community suffers a little bit from FOMO, where
yeah,
where they want their team to perform every single week. They want those points in their team as soon as possible. Supercoach is a long game. 24 rounds, and we've just completed round 1.
exactly. Well, that sort of moves into our next topic with round one trading priorities. So we were just, as you were explaining very well, we were just talking about where we got to back in our research. Like, we picked these players for a reason, and we can't just back off months of research and thought process on building our team just to completely tear it apart, unless you need to get like a Bailey Smith. And I think and if you need to double check on a player, whether that's rewatching the game and just looking at the eye tests, like maybe you didn't watch the game. I still haven't yet to look back on the Collingwood Pork game, where we just got to think of our research like the guys trading out Lockie Neal. We picked them for a reason, and some of these people should have known that a Jordan tag was at risk with this round one game. And if you wanted to avoid it, you just didn't have to pick him. But if you wanted to pick him because of, very fair enoughly, that West Coast game this week and that Richmond game in round 4, and I believe they've got like St Kilda or something as well a little bit later as well. Brisbane have an immaculate run for a team that just won the premiership, and you got to take advantage of that. And trading him out of round 1 is just pointless.
Yeah, so if we have a look at the top traded out players in Supercoach, you've got Harry Perryman at the top. That we've already spoken about him. We don't need to talk about him any further.
No.
The next player on the list is Sam Powell Pepper. 180k in the forward line. That also makes a lot of sense. The 18 stings. For a lot of people, that wouldn't have made their best 22, because obviously the 23rd score drops out of total scores. But yeah, for a lot of people, that score wouldn't have counted, but an 18 is still shit.
Yep.
And then the next player on the list is Elijah Sardis, who scored, what was it? He scored a 50 in about 50% game time.
Yep. And
he's the one where I want a second look.
I think we need a second look, because I know I was at the game, and when you're at a game of footy and it's hard to get a real read on what's actually happening, of just like players' positions, you're cheering on your own team, you're not focusing on the Supercoach side of things. Where, from what I noticed, Sardis was a lot more around the ball in the fourth quarter. Why? Is because Redmond moved out of the CBAs and he looked much better when that happens. So we got to have to assume that the Redmond experiment doesn't continue. We also got to keep in the back of our mind that Parrish is back in a week. This is a legacy game opportunity for Elijah Sardis. He needs to put his foot down, otherwise he might be in trouble. And yeah.
The thing that stands out for me with Elijah Sardis is all preseason we've been hearing about how much he has stepped up and he's starting to look like that first round pick that everyone sort of was wondering what was going on with, because we hadn't really seen him at AFL level, but we'd heard about all the domination that he'd had at VFL level. And it was time to translate that, because he's in his third season now. Usually you only get about 3 seasons to prove that you belong at the level, unless you're a tall lad. Otherwise, it's see you later, have fun trying to get a second chance. The time on ground worries me, because it was basically like they had a second sub.
Yeah.
But I want to see why they were so excited about him in the preseason. And I think Mason Redmond in that centre bounce setup for that first half or first three quarters or whatever it was, disrupted the role that they had envisioned for Sardis in that round 1 match. They've got the Crows this week at the MCG. This is a game where Essendon would think they are pretty strong chances to win, and they will be without Ridley, who would be in concussion protocols. You would think that Redmond going back to the back line after Ridley went off and Sardis getting that greater midfield role will continue this week, and we might see Sardis actually put out a score that is something that we want on field. Yeah. And the greatest thing is, because we've got the Giants and Gold Coast on a bye, let's say you have Noah Anderson or you have Finn Callahan or someone like that. You can stick those guys on your field, stick the E on Elijah Sardis. If Elijah Sardis stinks up the bed again, you can take Callahan off your field and bank on someone like a Jack Henderson instead. Like a lot of these players, we need a second look. None of the rookies looked comfortable in their first game, apart from the select few that people are trading in.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's a guy where if you don't have many other options and you need to correct to Ashcroft, I mean, I don't think that's even that urgent to some extent.
I'll let the people know I am trading in Ashcroft this week.
Same.
I think versus West Coast, I don't think we're going to get a true indication of whether he's a good pick or not because he's got West Coast. I think this week, if you had a poor round 1 and you are looking for points, I'm not saying that Ashcroft is going to spill out another 80 again, but pretty good chance against West Coast at the Gabba. This week is the week to bring in Levi Ashcroft or correct to a Dane Zorko or something along those lines because of the opponent.
Yeah, absolutely. And we did all of our research over preseason regarding Levi Ashcroft, and we were keen on him. And I think a lot of us trying to get him back into our teams, most of them would have been because he was announced as sub earlier in the week. And some of our thought process might have been that let's just have a look. Like, I now know that Ashcroft is no longer sub. Let's just have a look and see. And he passed the test with flying colours. So, yes, and he's got Richmond 2 weeks later. And even if that means more of a forward role, now with, I know he wasn't in the side, but McCarthy's unfortunately done his ACL again. I believe Kai Lohmann's out for a fair bit of time, Damo.
I think Kai Lohmann. There's an image of him doing image or a video of him doing laps today and looking in pretty good shape. Only supposed to miss 1 or 2 weeks.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was going to say because I think he was on crutches after the game. So I just would have thought, wow, that's a miraculous recovery. But yeah, so I do expect Ashcroft to be more of a half forward type for the next couple of weeks while Loman gets back. But that's still a good sign. I think there'll be a lot of forward time in that Brisbane forward 50. So I think he's a great fieldable option. So yeah, so you look at the priorities. I think I think in the first 2 rounds, I guess this debate happens every year, but do we? I think the priority for most super coaches and what it should be would be to fix the rookies. We got to make sure that cash gen is flowing, and we think about the rest later.
Yeah, for sure. And sitting back and watching the first 2 games before you decide on which rookies to correct is good because you get that body of work over two games, and you can decide if the rookies that you were looking at in round 1 were the ones to correct to after round 2.
Agree. And yeah, so, unless you've got a Bailey Smith that you need to get to, I think the priorities need to be the rookies. And if you've got rookies that you just didn't pass the eye test for you or just aren't going to make any money in the short term, then I think you just got to make sure that you get your O'Driscolls, Ashcrofts, potentially Xavier Lindsay's, make sure you got a Luke Trainer, that type of thing. So, and maybe even a Riley Bice we definitely need to get next week if you're not going this week. And so that's why, like, I'm really against people trading Lockie Neal and just swapping to a Dunkley or, I might go Lockie Neal to Rankin. Rankin looks fantastic. No, just there's got to be bigger priorities than Lockie Neal. Very likely your first or second highest paid player in your side. So I think that's how we sit on trading priorities. I think we've got to prioritize our rookies, just make sure the cash gen is flowing ever so smoothly. I guess this is I don't actually know why I put this down in the run sheet, Damo, but what do you do if you don't have, if you're new to the game and you didn't really understand what was going on? What would you do if you didn't have like a Jack McRae?
Oh,
Like there was a
if you did,
first time player.
if you don't have Jack, if you didn't have Jack McRae, then you probably had Bailey Smith. But
Which makes it hard.
So you want to go. If you didn't have Jack McRae but you had Bailey Smith, then Jack McRae is now your priority, not Bailey Smith. It's the same scenario, really.
True. Yeah, and I think if people have like a Riley Sanders, I think that's an easy swap. I know Riley Sanders had 42% CBAs, and which is fine. But imagine when Bont and Treloar back. But it was more the fact he played that Jack McRae half forward role that second half, and his 2 goals off half forward sort of saved his score. And I don't think many Riley Sanders owners would have been accepting that sort of game out of him. He definitely wouldn't have passed the eye test. So I think he's like an easy swap if you don't have a McRae or a Bailey Smith as well. And other people will go to like a Perryman. Let's get back into some of these questions. We've missed a fair few. Where were we up to? Harley's AFL talk. Thoughts on Sam DeConning, Damo?
If you're picking him as a stepping stone, I don't mind it. But if you think he's going to be a keeper, I still worry that Chris Scott is going to move him back to the back line. There was a positive update about what's his name? Toby Conway during the week.
Kobe Tonway.
Kobe Tonway. It's his new name. He can sit right next to Tim Kelly at M5.
Yeah, yes, the Tim Kelly reference.
There was a positive update to Toby Conway, and Geelong are massive fans of him. I believe they extended his contract during the preseason as well. So I worry that when Toby Conway is back, which I think the update said he could be back playing football within a month, I worry that Sam De Koning returns to the back line. And is trading in someone at his price worth it for that month of cash generation? It's 360K, is it? Something along those
Yeah,
lines?
361K.
Yeah, 361K. So it's a lot of money to spend on just a month of scoring.
Yeah, so maybe you could get 2 or 3 price rises out of him. I think that'd be the thought process. Got
Potentially,
Harry
but
Boyd this
yeah,
week.
but then the other debate is, does Toby Conway come straight in? So
I don't think he does, just purely due to
and
basically the entire preseason. He's
and
had an injured back.
rookie coach just said in the chat here, which is very true. They keep speaking about how STK could be one of the best defenders in the comp. So
Yes.
so they clearly don't see SDK as a long-term ruckman.
No, and yeah, we got to remember the Chris Scott quotes throughout preseason where certain circumstances week to week will change with De Koning. So the probably this week again is similar to last week, just due to Harry Boyd being the ruck, where we see 80% CBAs, we see Blitzarves rucking in defence, and Neil rucking in the forward line, and De Koning just staying in that midfield doing the contest.
Let's also not forget that Sam De Koning was up against Liam Reedy, who struggled
Yeah,
against Cohen Livingston in the All Stars game.
he did, didn't he? I know Hawthorn was sniffing a little bit at Liam Reedy, just trying to become the next Lloyd Meek 2.0, but he hasn't gotten off to a flash start. So, and I think Jackson rucked a fair bit as well on Saturday.
Yeah, I think Liam Reedy attended most of the contests that Sam De Koning did, but Liam Reedy struggled, and this week Sam De Koning goes up against Marshall and Boyd.
Mainly Boyd though.
But still,
yeah,
this week you get to see him against two better opponents.
yeah, that's true. I wonder if Sam De Koning could be more like his brother in terms of. I think we sort of saw it on the weekend a little bit. Of we know Tom De Koning, how good he is in Supercoach is purely due to the around the ground stuff, not necessarily the ruck contests. I wonder if De Koning can be more like that. I think that's his avenue to becoming a good ruck, but I'm not sure if he'll ever become a good ruck. I think he's. If anyone has Sam De Koning early in the ruck, then you just chuck the VC on him because he's not. He did most of his ruck work. He apparently spent most of preseason as a ruck, and yeah, it's an interesting one. I know a lot of people are going Perryman to Sam De Koning. I would hold off that. I don't really like Cheese. Also, Chera move to halfback is it a worry for you guys or is it a watch? It's a watch for me. I'm still not fully buying. I feel like I need to see it, but yeah, I mean, he looked much better in the midfield than he did halfback. That's for sure. And we were purchasing the pick, thinking he would be a full-time midfielder. So it's obviously a bit of a worry, and I'll need to see how it goes tonight.
It feels like Carlton is still trying to work out how to cover the Nick Newman absence. So until they
Yes.
work that out, I don't really want to touch many players from Carlton.
No, other than yeah, that's That's the thing, and I think we're seeing it more than ever now. The magnets being moved around, so I think that's just the modern game now of just players having versatility. So it'll be interesting to see how Chera goes there if he does play there tonight. Chera is a watch, easy correction to Finn Callahan or up to a Rosie. Yeah, something like that. Luckily, we've got hundreds of options around his price if we need to correct to him. But yeah, he's just a watch for now. We'll see how he goes tonight against the Hawks. I'll be there. Flynn gone from my team was flex. I'm not a fan of trading Matty Flynn.
No, me neither.
Harley, please keep him. He's priced at what 60, and he scored 87 against the toughest ruck to score on in the comp. So please keep Flynn. First one of the most restrictive rucks too. I'd consider 80 his floor. Good signs, IMO. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Obviously he played poorly. Obviously, like a West Coast perspective, I was seeing a lot of West Coast fans not happy with this game. But what was the year? Was it 2021? The year when Flynn was the rookie for the Giants, and he got up to as high as 435K, something like that.
He's never been a massive averaging ruckman. He's never been one of the top scoring ruckmen, but in 2021 he averaged 87, 2022 averaged 84, 2023 averaged 88.
Yeah, and you would assume that we expect a very similar result with Flynn. So yes, that's fine. Got to go to work, boys, but enjoy the rest of the stream. Thank you, Cheese. I know you're a great supporter of
Thanks,
the
Cheese.
channels, so I love your work. MCB me. No, that wasn't dodgy. Have a good day at work. Have fun, Cheese. MCB me. It matters where he's flex, where he's at flex or R2 because he's at R2. You've saved us a ton of money from, say, Tom DeConning at R2, and you can spend elsewhere. Well, yeah, there's still a few more rounds to go with seeing what's going on, but yeah, I think as long as you got Flynn, I think that's the priority. And if you don't, I would be looking to get him in. Flex for me is just another spot for cash cow rookies. I mean, yeah, that's how I've done it with O'Driscoll. Rookie coach, totally agree. I'm sticking to my gut, weighing a week on Baz, SDK, Frager, giving Pez another shot, keeping Sardis, Foss for second looks, grabbing Levi for SPP. That makes total sense. I have no problems with that.
Yep.
Yeah, that's cool. SuperCoach Pro, g'day, lads. What do you think Nod scores against the Swans? Damo, the floor's yours.
80.
I agree. I think the CBAs stay whilst
until
Hayden Young comes back.
Well, yeah, they said pre-season before the Hayden Young injury that they wanted to rotate more players through the centre bounce setup, and Nathan O'Driscoll was one of the guys that they mentioned specifically. So I assume Nathan O'Driscoll's CBAs will continue even when Hayden Young returns, but they've said that while Hayden Young is out, he will get he will get a share of those CBAs as well. So he's got increased CBAs while Hayden Young is out, and he shouldn't completely lose them when Hayden Young is back. But his role might change a bit in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, so I mean, because I saw on DFS that he was on 68% CBAs, which is just golden for a rookie. But it probably goes down. What would you say, Damo? 35 to 40% when Hayden Young is back, and maybe 5?
I would say probably 25%.
Okay, 25%.
Yeah. So, but his run and carry on the wing and his ability to get forward is probably where a lot of his scoring comes from anyway.
Agree. Try again next season. Oh, that was due to Jack McRae.
Yep.
Still fixable. If you don't get him before the price rises, though, probably try again next year. I've spoken about
this one.
Yeah, we mentioned that one, but who knows with Chris Scott? It's Chris Scott who comments made me fade Baz, so can't trust him. But as SDS said, there is already a rucking split, has one game against St Kilda, then 3 hard matchups. Yes, we didn't mention that. Yeah, so it's hard. We didn't mention that I guess if you want to jump on DeConning, it's probably might be this week. Because if you're buying him in next week, you're buying him into 3 really tough ruck matchups. And that's where I think the ruck setup could look to potentially change at Geelong, because Chris Scott did mention that week to week he'll look different. So it might be more Mark Blitzarves in the ruck, and then DeConning goes back into defense. So bless you, question mark.
Yep, that was a sneeze. I muted my mic just in time.
Ah, good boy. Good boy.
Yep.
You're a professional at this. Do you agree with this?
Yeah, I mean, Chris Scott's comments made me fade Baz as well. So he's a guy that I've had to trade in this week. I don't think I can go without him. But yeah, they do like to trade cat and mouse with the media. So
yeah, they're in the news recently, the Cats. So obviously for SuperCoach, we'll just stick to what they're relevant with. SDK is still tempting though, not going to lie. I mean, he certainly is. I mean, I think we expect another spike, potentially a spike game against the Saints if the Harry Boyd 86% CBAs keep up. So that'll be an interesting watch. I'm very much considering him, not going to lie, but yeah, we'll give it some more thought. If SDK pops 115 this week, the math is great cash generation, so would be good. Otherwise, could be a scary hold. Yeah, because it makes it even harder, I reckon, next week to bring in Sam DeConning, because knowing that he's got his next 3 matchups are tough, but he's got that really, really low break even where you feel like you need to get him.
Yeah, I don't think he is a must trade in. Because I think this week and the week and last week were the weeks where people were really looking at him, kickstarting his cash generation. If you miss him after this week, or if you're not bringing him in or didn't start him, then you've got to be prepared, because he's going up against Maxi Gawn, Oscar McInerney, and Riley O'Brien over the next 3 weeks.
Yuck. And who's to say they'll just bring in Reece Stanley, more of an experienced body against those experienced rucks. Gets ruck DPP at round 6. Yeah, probably. So, yeah, he does. Unless after round 2, they just stick him in the back line with that tough run. But yeah, probably. The DeConning brothers at R1 and R2. I mean, that's on the cards, isn't it? Lock. Had to pause and a bit behind, but some Dons news. Sardis will get 75+% game time. Hobbs getting dropped, and Menzies or Perkins will be sub. I forgot which one. Okay, is this I'm not on Twitter at the minute. Is this true?
Breaking news. We've got breaking news straight from the chat. Let's if that's how it's going to be, then I'm excited for Sardis this week.
Yeah, and put it. I mean, it doesn't really hurt him if you put him on field for another week, because if it pops off, it's great, and if it doesn't, it's best 18. It's exactly best 18. Right. So this is where you take the risks with these rookies. Don't tease us, JP. Flynn's not getting dropped.
I don't know where that's come from, but I would be surprised if he got dropped.
The thing is, you don't do months of pre-season determining the number one ruck just for him to get dropped after 1 week. And Bailey Williams isn't exactly max scored.
And I watched that game. The ruck wasn't where they won and lost that game.
No, sure, Witts was getting the hit outs, but the West Coast mids were just getting battered. Harley Reid's just lack of work rate, I think, really showed on the weekend. Yeah, no, I'd be shocked if Flynn got dropped after 1 week. Thoughts on Arnie Schauenmaker from the Saints? 260-ish. Role looks good for the next 10 weeks with Howard out. Then I'll just swap to Travalia Taru. I reckon this could be a Saints supporter. No, not for me.
So he scored 66 in round 1. If he averages 66 for the year, he's only going to make 80K on his starting price.
Yeah, no.
Not generally what you want from your cash cows.
No, I'd rather just pay up 100 plus, pay up another 100 and get a Friger or Sam DeConning, or go down and look at a Riley Bice, or if you don't have Luke Trainer, go for a Luke Trainer. Do you have a job? Yes, I do. I just don't work on Thursdays, Waters.
Same.
So that's why we're doing this. That's why we thought this would be a good time to do one. Looks good for 100K-ish till round 10. Was this about DeConning?
I don't know.
Sorry, Marshall. We're a little bit behind on some of the questions. So if you could help us out there, that would be great. Who are you guys on the lookout this week to bring in soon? That's not popular, like a Silvani, for example. That's not popular.
Oh, okay. So I'm going to steal one from Clarkey, who I host the Footy Mailbag with. He brought up a really good one. He's got a keen eye on Carl Amon.
I had a question like that on my TikTok, and I'm like, hang on, I actually don't hate it.
He's got a keen eye on Carl Amon. So averaging 112. He's averaged low 90s in 3 of the last 4 seasons. It looks like they're now using him in set plays and like good situations. Like they've finally worked out his best position. Carl Amon, I really don't hate it. He is one guy that he's come onto my radar, and he might be a guy that I look at if I do have to move on from Perryman. Carl Amon is a guy who's come onto my radar thanks to Clarkey. Another guy that I don't mind, but I don't know if this is because they're playing St Kilda or because they had a really high possession count or something. But Jake Saligo looked really good as well.
He did, and the CBAs were higher than Peatling's, which I was surprised about.
Yeah. I really like Jake Saligo, and I don't know. I didn't see his team that he entered round 1 with, but I know that JP, who won SuperCoach a few years ago, he had him in his team at one point.
And I mean, whoever wins SuperCoach, sometimes you just got to listen to them. So massive eye on Saligo. For me, not really. There's not really anyone that that's not popular. Not particularly. I feel like a few of my premiums are lowly owned, so I feel like that's my differential to everyone else. Like, I think Brayshaw's 11% owned and Petrarca's 9%. So I don't know. Nah, there isn't anyone in, because if they're popular, they're probably decent options. Sometimes with some of these players. So, hey Damo, Well, I got that the wrong way around. Hey, Steve. How you going, Crazy Frogs? Damo, what do you think of Murphy Reid role and job security? See you at Gather Round.
All right. If you asked me before the Geelong game, I would have said Murphy Reid's job security was awful. But you don't score 4 goals in 10 minutes and then get dropped the next week, or you don't get some sort of chance, you don't get some sort of lenience in your form. I think Murphy Reid is going to be in the team for a while now, but I don't think he's going to always score well. I think he is going to have a half forward sort of role with some midfield, not a lot of midfield.
Yeah,
So job security, yes. Role not good for SuperCoach, in my opinion.
Yeah, and what did he score? 43?
It might have been higher than that but he took a while to get going, and then that he scored 50 exactly.
Yeah, and that's a bit unfortunate, kicking four goals in 4 minutes.
Well, he was on
Please
minus
score 50.
He was on a minus score at quarter time or something. So yeah.
Yeah, I think his job security now is fantastic, but I wouldn't I mean, we'll see how he goes this week. He could score a 70 plus, and then that actually becomes a question.
And Frogs, it was good to meet you the one time I was at Gather Round in that first season, but unfortunately I'm not there this year.
And I'm gonna have to make this.
I'm trying to get back, but just the timing just doesn't seem to work anytime I want to come.
Yeah, and I'll make the unfortunate announcement. First time ever, I'm not going to Gather Round this year. It'll be my move-in week. So I'm moving into my new place the weekend of Gather Round. So that's why. And yeah, it's just a bit tough. So unfortunately, I won't be making Gather Round for the first time this year. Sorry guys, I missed the first bit of the show, but was your advice to hold Perryman or move him on? I think both of our advice, if you didn't need was to hold him.
Yeah, it was team dependent, but probably hold.
If you need to get Bailey Smith and he's the avenue, then you probably do it. But if you don't need to move on, then you hold. James P, everyone keeps thinking I'm trying to F over my fellow SC enthusiasts, lol. What does this mean?
I think people. Oh, it's because of the news he told us about Sardis.
Sorry, I got dementia, unfortunately.
It took me a while.
Sardis or Nevitt, good rookie trade. Well, if it's Sardis or Nevitt, I'm picking Nevitt. If it's Sardis for Nevitt, I think that's okay. There might be a rookie worse than Sardis in your side that I'd prefer to do, Damo. Sardis to Nevitt.
Yeah, if it's Sardis to Nevitt, I would wait and watch again. On both of them. Nevitt did great against the Dockers, but the Dockers didn't turn up, so who knows? Yeah, I would wait and watch both of them before you make that move, but seems fine if that's what you want to do.
Yep. Yeah, true. Thanks, boys. Quality stream. Thanks for the ideas. Ribbit, thoughts on Jake Bowie? Not for me, but I don't mind.
No thanks.
I don't think so. Waters, 1976. Josh Sin didn't see the game, but supposedly had a lockdown role. Going to hold this week. Will this dude make money? Yeah, I didn't watch the Collingwood Port game, but from what it sounds like, I don't think he had the role that people might have envisioned. So I don't think he's going to end up being an option.
If he does only average 59, which is what he scored in round one, if that's his average, he will make about 100K, which isn't terrible, but at 229K, you can go down to a guy 100K cheaper and get much more money out of your investment.
Agree. Rookie coach, yes. Aim on. Decent scoring history. Aim on as a solid watch and a pod option. Yes, he is. James P. Can't say rookie C, but my mate is friends with the current Dogs player and a current Essendon player. Some breaking news on the channel. Oh no, it's my friend's cousin is friends with a player situation. Hope it's true, James. If it is, I'm counting on you for all Dogs and Dons news. If he is correct, James P, make sure you're on the Throwdown Thursdays every week. We need this sort of news. I think we'll get back to the run sheet. Spend a little bit of time with the chat there. So we are going to introduce a new segment, and because of my planning, I didn't tell Damo anything about what this is about, but it is a similar to the In the Gun Fireball Friday style, where you pick someone, something, anything SuperCoach related that's on the hot seat. So we're calling it On the Hot Seat. So Damo, have you got anyone that springs to mind on who's on the hot seat for the SuperCoach community or anything this week?
Jason Horne-Francis.
Yes. Agree.
And I mean, an 83 while getting tagged isn't so bad, but there were so many people toing and froing about whether they should start him or not. And round one would not have instilled any confidence in people. He comes up against Richmond. He might get attention from Camden McIntosh, but he needs to prove that he can pump out a 110 plus score against a team like Richmond.
Agree. And I feel like this is one of these games where Horne-Francis can really show to the SuperCoach community why we did pick him. And I think that's a fair on the hot seat. So we will review this each week and whether it's a pass or a fail on the hot seat. And Horne-Francis is a good shout. For me, it's Harry Sheezel. Scored 106. He is the highest owned premium price player in the game. Part of that was, I reckon part of it was due to it's Harry Sheezel. Some of the other part of it would be that due to the lack of options we were liking in defence, we just needed some security with Harry Sheezel. We need to see that security from Harry Sheezel this week. I think Melbourne is a good matchup for him. I think he can run amok in that midfield, even with Petrarca and Oliver in the side. We need to see the faith from Sheezel, and we are going to need to see a 115 plus out of Sheezel, just to remind the SuperCoach community, yep, I'm him. I'm on par with Dacos on what he can provide. I think
his first half was awful.
It was.
Most of his score came in the second half. If he can have if he can have an entire game like he played that second half, he's going to be fine.
Agree. And I don't know if you saw the podcast that he was on in the preseason, and it was like with a fitness influencer, and he was just talking about his diet, his sleep, his red light therapy, just how seriously he takes his body, which is obviously an amazing sign for to pay up for a SuperCoach premium. And yeah, and if he provides a 106 again, it might be time to change the red light therapy to yellow. So I don't even know if that exists, but anyway. But yeah,
I don't know what that means.
No, I don't know either. I'm waffling at this point, but I do think we need to see a bit of faith from Harry Sheezel and just really bounce back. I think this matchup is a really good matchup for him. Now let's head into some. Let's talk captains and vice captains. How are we? What's our mindset thinking this week for captains and vice captains, Damo?
I'm running it back. I'm going Tom De Koning into Lockie Neal again.
Gee, that's strong. That is very strong.
Actually, I can't really say I'm running it back because last week I was talking to our good friend Pig Mentality, and he talked me into captaining Tristan Sherry instead. So I didn't get the James Jordan tag and that stinky 41 as a captaincy score, which thank fuck for that, because otherwise my team would have gone directly into the bin. So yes, Tristan Sherry as captain saved my week. So I can't really say I'm running it back, but I am going back to Tom DeConning and Lockie Neal.
And I think they're fantastic options. And anyone that needs help realistically with captains and vice captains, the two best I can recommend is the Third Man Up on the Supercoach Sword Play channel with Janeth, Roscoe, and I also saw DR in there as well. So that is a good option to watch, and also the Pig Mentality captain options as well is by far and away those two are the best for content to look for when it comes to captains and vice captains. If you ever need help, just watch them. And for me, I actually am having a bit of trouble with determining what order I want to go. So I personally think Connor Rosie is my best option this week. And I think Tom DeConning is my second best option this week. So I was sort of thinking, do you VC Rosie and then go into a fullback option like a Sheasel or maybe even a Petrarca? Or do you vice captain DeConning knowing he's probably your second best option? And if you have to take a 125, you take a 125, but you miss out on a potential Rosie spike game. I don't know. So that's what I'm determining. How do you feel on that, Damo? Do you just go with your best option as VC regardless, or do you want to get your two best involved?
So I agree. So you mentioned Third Man Up, and I agree with their philosophy on this. Your VC should chase upside, while your captain should be secure.
Yeah. I keep forgetting that each year. Yeah, so look, I'm leaning towards Tom DeConning tonight into Rosie, as I see them as my two best options in my team this week. I'm probably going to do that. It feels weird vice captaining It always feels weird vice captaining or captaining your player against your team, but that's all right. So yeah, I'm probably looking at vice captain DeConning into Rosie, but yeah, I think you've got the better option there. I think Lockie Neal is one of the best options for this week. And also as well, I guess one thing to ask is, what's your floor? Sorry, what's your vice captain take zone?
Usually it's anything above 125.
Okay.
But it depends on, like, I don't always put the VC on someone playing in the first game or second game in the round. If my vice captaincy score is on a Saturday night, and I've seen it's a high scoring round with lots of popular players going 110, 105, 115, then maybe 125, then maybe I need something way better than 125 to pass as a vice captaincy option.
Oh, shit. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think round one is the hardest round to nail a captain because of the lack of data we have. We can look at data last year, but we know trends can change. And we don't really get a good gauge of data for the new season until probably after 5 rounds, I would say. So I think round one's the hardest. I think the bye rounds for vice captain and captains are going to be easier than ever, just due to the lack of teams, the lack of bulk for teams on each bye round. So I think the buys will be a bit easier to captain a guy. So I think for round two, yeah, I think you You look at a Tom DeConning tonight. You look at whoever's playing Richmond each week, even though Richmond played extremely well. And then you've got to have a look at who's playing West Coast, and Lockie Neal and Josh Dunkley. If you have one of them, another reason not to trade out Lockie Neal, guys, he might have the easiest mid matchup in the game with.
And they've also got Richmond in a couple of weeks' time as well.
Exactly. So any Lockie Neal trading advocates out there, please don't do it. Now I think we can just go through a couple more questions. Any final questions, guys, leave down below, and I think we can probably look to wrap this up. It's been a good show. So any final questions you guys want, let's have a look at that. Mikey Z, thank you for jumping on, mate. I think this is the round where you get Rosie if you don't have him. Like me, I'm concerned Butters will make him a 100 to 105 player. Would love your thoughts.
The great thing about Zach Butters, well, I don't know if this is a great thing, but the great thing that Connor Rosie has going for him in that department is Zach Butters is still about a month and a half away. So even if Zach Butters comes back and Rosie's role changes to get him to be a 100 to 105 player, by then Rosie could be a 600 plus K mid that you can just transfer to someone else who's on a tear. So you don't generally like trading or sideways trading premiums, but in this situation, I don't mind it.
Exactly. And he's priced at 98. If he can average, there's every chance he could average 10 plus points above that price point to where it's fine. Like, it's a great result. And he can be 600K and we can move off him for someone else for a better opportunity. So, yeah, I still think he could be a good M8 even with Butters, considering the price point that owners paid for him. But it might mean Rosie averages 115 without Butters, and the rest of the year he averages 100 just to even it out. But it will be interesting. I don't think if you don't have Rosie, I don't think you need to buy him, Damo. I think there's
I don't think he is a must trade in. No,
I think you probably need to start him if you wanted him. But yeah, I guess if his break even's low enough, he becomes interesting. Trade Perryman for DeConning in backline, good option. So I think we talked about this. I don't think we're particularly a massive fan of it if you don't need to do it.
Yeah.
If you got bigger priorities, I think Perryman's a fine hold for now. Just for one more week, though. Thoughts on Powell Pepper to Lindsay and Sardis for Ashcroft for me this week? Thanks, Causer, for jumping on. I like Powell Pepper to Lindsay.
Yeah.
Sardis to you need Ashcroft.
Can I just say I would hold all of them and then do Powell Pepper to Ashcroft if you have to?
Yeah, I'd probably do Powell Pepper to Ashcroft.
Yeah, and I would wait and watch Lindsay for one more week.
Yeah, I agree with that. James P, not that breaking, as I found out on Tuesday. I've been trying to give the community the heads up ever since. Haha. Yeah, so if anyone's curious, it was let me try to find the thing that he said. Just bear with me. Had to pause and a bit behind, but some Don's news. Sardis will get 75+% game time. Hobbs getting dropped, and Menzies or Perkins will be sub. So this was sort of the news that he's been heard about Sardis. So if that's true, that's obviously fantastic. So yeah, I think Sardis is a definite watch for and hold for one more week. Oh, okay. I'm glad we got asked about Ned Long. Where are you guys on Ned Long? Never heard of him. Have no idea on his job security or role holding. Cheers, lads. Thanks, Lachlan, for the question.
Collingwood love, but Jordan De Goey is coming back, so his job security, I've got no idea.
And I think it's tough to trust Craig McRae with newer players as well. Like, we saw Ed Allen, and I thought Ed Allen looked good against the Giants and got dropped. So I never heard of him. He's a Hawthorn legend, mate. He played 2 games for us. I have no idea on job security. I don't think it's that great. I think one bad game and he's in a bit of a risk. And well, from what I know with Ned Long, he is a player that needs to play in the midfield because he isn't that flexible as a player. So I don't think he can really play anywhere else. That's why the risk of him being sub is high because they can't look to move him around the ground a bit. So we tried to play him more as a half forward and it didn't work. He didn't look that good when he was at Hawthorn. So if he needs to be a CBA midfielder for this pick to work. So yeah, I just think there's more priorities elsewhere in the midfield.
Yeah, agreed. And 200K, expensive, very expensive. And I think there might be better options with better job security around the same price.
Yeah, also scored a 30 in opening round, then tons up because he was sub. So his job security isn't exactly amazing. So I would personally look elsewhere. I think there's cheaper options with better job security. So I think they'll do it, guys. Damo, thank you so much for jumping on once again as my fellow co-host. What are you? Oh yeah, sorry. Also, Sam Lawler. Where do you sit on him?
Hold. Most of his scoring came when Richmond was skiing downhill.
Yep, I agree. And if you don't have him, he's a watch. Thank you guys so much for jumping on. Damo, what are you up to this weekend?
I'm watching the footy.
Same. And I'm going to Essen, Adelaide with a few of the boys. So shout out to anyone that's going to Essen, Adelaide. I'm going to Hawthorn Carlton tonight, so that should be good. Taking work off tomorrow, so all good. Thank you guys so much for watching. Are you going to the footy on Sunday night?
Probably. I'm undecided.
All right. We'll see you guys in the next Throwdown Thursdays. Cheers.
See you guys. Thanks.